The recent history of college football in the South has been dominated by the SEC and the elite teams that come out of the conference every year. And if we were going off just recent history, many might forget just how good Arkansas football once was. Before the 2012 season, Arkansas football was among the top 25 schools in the nation consistently, and would rarely have too many losing seasons. But after 2012, Arkansas football hit lows that they had never seen since the early 1900s. So what happened to Arkansas football, and what has prevented them from being successful? In today's video, we'll be looking at the fall of Arkansas football. To understand the fall of Arkansas football, we need to understand how good they were in the first place. Their history with success begins all the way back in 1958, where the Razorbacks hired Frank Broyles to be their head coach. To say that Frank would change the program forever would be a massive understatement to all of the work that he put in. He would last as the head coach until 1976, and completely turn the program around into consistent winners. In his 19 seasons as the head coach, Arkansas had just 2 losing seasons, one of which came during his first year in 1958. The Razorbacks would make it to 10 bowl games during his tenure, winning 4 of them. 4 of those seasons ended with 10 or more wins, and they even went undefeated in the 1964 season, finishing at number 2 in the nation in the AP poll, but being awarded with the national champion title from 7 other selectors. After Broyles left the university came Lou Holtz in 1977. Lou did his best to keep Arkansas as a winning program, and in his 7 seasons there, he did just that. The Razorbacks didn't have a losing season under him, and in his first season in 1977, Arkansas went 11-1 with an Orange Bowl victory and a number 3 finish in the AP poll. While Lou couldn't match the level of success that Frank had, he still kept them as winners and kept them at the top of the Southwest Conference. After going 6-5 in 1983, Lou left the program and along came Ken Hatfield. Ken had a pretty good tenure that lasted from 1984 to 1989, and like the coaches before him, there was nothing but winning seasons. Arkansas made a bowl game in every season that Ken was the head coach and improved towards the end of his tenure. They won 10 games in 1985, 9 games in 1986 and 1987, and then 10 games again in 1988 and 1989. They even captured the Southwest title twice in 1988 and 1989. The only problem with Ken, it appeared, was that he couldn't win the big games with the Razorbacks, as they went 1-5 in bowl games in his tenure and couldn't finish in the top 10 of the AP poll once. Things began to fall a bit for Arkansas following Hatfield's departure, as they struggled to find consistency between the next few head coaches in Jack Crow, Joe Kynes, and Danny Ford. Under Crow, 1990 marked the first time that the Razorbacks had a losing season since 1967, and it wouldn't be the last. Crow would coach from 1990 to 1992, and he didn't even last the full 1992 season before he was out and Joe Kynes took over as the interim head coach. It was also around this time that Arkansas left the Southwest Conference and joined the SEC, where they joined the West Division. Life in the SEC proved to be a tough switch, with new competition, and they struggled out of the gate. With Danny Ford as the new head coach in 1993, Arkansas would only have 2 winning seasons up until 1997, with their best season being an 8-5 finish. But after Danny Ford came Houston Nutt for the 1998 season, and Arkansas football began to show some life once again. Immediately, Houston revived the program, as they went to 6 straight bowl games, winning 2 of them, including a Cotton Bowl victory over Texas in 1999. He did hit a bit of a rough patch, however, as in 2004 and 2005, Arkansas didn't make a bowl game in either season, but bounced back in 2006, where Arkansas made it to the SEC title game, won 10 games, and finished ranked in the AP poll. This would also be around the same time where running back Darren McFadden burst onto the scene and became a star around the nation. 2007 would be the final year of the Houston Nutt era, and he would eventually be replaced by Bobby Petrino. This would be a huge hire for the Razorbacks, or at least at the time it seemed like it would be. He improved on his win total in all 4 seasons he was the head coach, won 2 bowl games in 4 seasons, and finished with the number 5 rank in the AP poll in 2011. Arkansas football had hit its peak in the modern era at this point, but everything came quickly crashing down. The downfall began, or at least was publicized, after Bobby Petrino got into a motorcycle accident on April 1st, 2012. The passenger on the motorcycle was also a former Arkansas athlete who he was having an affair with. He even attempted to hide her presence, as he reportedly told a witness not to call 911 and said repeatedly to reporters that he was alone. Now, initially, Arkansas released a statement saying that Bobby was indeed alone because that's what they were told, but just 10 days later on April 11th, he was fired. All of the events were disappointing, from the affair to the lies and cover-up, and that was echoed by running back Knile Davis, who stated that we've put a lot of work in over the last 4 years to get to where we're at. Just to see it go down the drain in 24 hours is just, it hurts, but we can't do anything but move forward. Although Petrino had on-the-field success on paper, he still had issues even outside of that incident. Notably, Arkansas's recruiting, although they had talent, wasn't as good as it could have been. Arkansas signed a total of 108 players in the 5 classes that made up the Petrino era. Of those 108 players, 45 either never made it to campus, were kicked off the team, or transferred away from the university altogether, meaning 44% of those recruits had little to no impact at the university. But regardless of what he accomplished on the field, nothing could make up for the person that he was off of it. So moving forward, Arkansas hired John L. Smith to be their new head coach, and heading into the 2012 season, they were actually ranked pretty highly as they opened the season ranked at number 10. But just 2 weeks into the season, Arkansas's season was effectively over. They won their opener over Jacksonville State and then dropped an infamous game to Louisiana Monroe in overtime that saw them get kicked out of the top 25 altogether. They followed that embarrassing game up with a 52-0 loss at home to Alabama, and they could never recover, going 4-8 on the season. They actually had a lot of talent on these teams, but they just couldn't put it together. They ranked 91st in offensive scoring and allowed 30 points per game on defense, and it was a disaster of a season. Quickly, Arkansas moved on from Smith and went on to hire Wisconsin head coach Bret Bielema. Bret had done a decent job with the Badgers, and the hope was that he could fix the Razorbacks. But things got worse before they got better, as they went 3-9 in 2013 before having 3 straight winning seasons from 2014 to 2016. But after regressing in 2017, Bret was fired from the team. Arkansas just wasn't good enough from 2014 to 2016, and it was clear that he wasn't the right leader for the team. Losing assistant coaches didn't help with the consistency, but the loss of offensive line coach Sam Pittman was felt the most, as the identity of being a tough team in the trenches quickly faded away upon his departure. Some of the problems that plagued Bret in his tenure included the fact that he just couldn't remain consistent at all. One week they'd win a huge game and play amazing, and then the next week they would come out flat and lose. There appeared to be little discipline and willingness to adapt in game, and that cost them. A lot of their losses were actually close for the majority of Bret's tenure, but many of those games were winnable. So after Bielema, Arkansas looked everywhere for someone who could lead the team. Ultimately, they decided on Chad Morris. Morris was a well-accomplished high school football coach in the state of Texas, a great offensive assistant at Clemson, and was in the process of turning around SMU. So there were high hopes that came with Morris, and he had the track record to prove it. But in 2018 and 2019, Arkansas played some of the worst football it has ever played. He could only win a total of 4 games across the 2 seasons, and none of those wins came in the SEC. They weren't good on either side of the ball under Morris. Offensively, they ranked 115th and 110th in the nation in offensive scoring, and defensively they ranked 108th and 124th in the nation in points allowed. This was their worst stretch since 1905 and 1906, which was over 100 years ago. For some, it appeared that Chad Morris just wasn't ready for SEC football at all. While he had experience coaching football in the South in the state of Texas, he hadn't coached before in the SEC. And it didn't help at all that he coaches in the SEC West, where you have to play Alabama, LSU, Auburn, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss and Mississippi State every single year. But they were just bad, and to really put into perspective how bad it was, Morris lost 4 times to Group of 5 competition in his 2 seasons. The rest of the SEC combined dropped 5 such games during Morris's tenure, and one of those losses came to Western Kentucky in 2019. The quarterback for the Hilltoppers that day was Ty Storey, who coincidentally played quarterback for Arkansas the year before transferring away. Morris just wasn't the right guy for the job, and he just couldn't develop any players in his time there. One player who was on the team before Chad got there reported how Chad would barely speak to him, and only did so for the cameras. So now here we are in the present day, and the question is, can this situation be fixed? I think it's important to be optimistic, but understand that it will take some time to get this program back on track. The thing is though, is that Arkansas has done this before. They've been through a rough patch and then hired Houston Nutt, who turned the program around. All it takes is one man, and Arkansas is hoping that the man for them is coincidentally Sam Pittman, who left them years ago. Sam does fit the profile to be a success at the university. First off, he knows what it takes to play in the SEC, but he also knows what it means to be a Razorback. It will be interesting to watch, and it does help that he has Kendall Briles to be his offensive coordinator, and fix an offense that has had just 4 games scoring more than 30 points in the last 2 seasons. Arkansas has had the recruiting, as they still rank in the top 30 nationally for the most part. They just need the right man to lead them. The 2019 class was really good in particular, as Arkansas signed 11 4-star recruits according to 24/7 Sports. But as always, only time will tell if and when Arkansas football can get back to some form of consistent winning. This has been the fall of Arkansas football. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe if you're new, and as always, I will see you guys next time.